So there is a very high chance that Nick Diaz will be returning to the UFC in 2021 after his manager came out today and said that there is a 99.99999% chance that Nick Diaz will be making his UFC return in 2021. That's a very high percentage if you guys don't know. I just made sure to get all of those nines in there and the correct amount of nines in there because I didn't want to take things out of context and put words in his manager's mouth. But he said 99.99999% chance. That's a lot of nines after the 99%. He could have said 99.99%, but he wanted to go a little bit further. I like it. I think there's a very promising chance that Nick Diaz will be returning, and I'm so glad that we're having this news because I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he's probably going to be returning. He's apparently been training for 4 months now in a row. We're in December now, but he's been training for the last 4 months. Then he took a month off last month apparently. Now he wants to get back in there, train through December, train through January, and end up with a new deal in 2021, which I'm really looking forward to. I think we can go ahead and assume, with all of the rumours going round, that he's probably going to make a return in 2021, because if I was the UFC, they're probably not asking for millions. Nick Diaz is not going to come out there and go, I want 3 million to return. I reckon they're going to give him 500,000 to show as the headliner of a fight night against a winnable opponent that's in the rankings, and that's what we need to find out in this video today. Who will Nick Diaz be making his potential return against, even though it's a very high potential? It's still a potential return. Who will he be making his potential return against in 2021? That's what we're going to find out in this video. There's a ton of options. All of them are ranked, and we'll see what goes down. However, there are a few that I would really like to see him take on. For example, Tyron Woodley returned back to training for the first day yesterday, and he's training with Joaquin Buckley again, even though he turned down Joaquin Buckley before. Now they're training together. I guess they settled their differences. Maybe Joaquin Buckley is a little bit more mature than he was when he originally came onto the scene. Maybe that's a very plausible explanation, I'll be honest with you guys. But Tyron Woodley has trained back into training with Joaquin Buckley. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I hope that they do make Tyron Woodley versus Nick Diaz, because I feel like it's the perfect fight, which is why I just said before the fight has even been made that I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Because Woodley versus Diaz makes all the sense in the world. Even if it's not Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz would make sense against Tyron Woodley as well, because Nate Diaz right now has slipped out of those welterweight rankings. Oh well, Nick Diaz is definitely going to jump straight into those rankings when he comes back. I don't see Nick Diaz coming back against a Nico Price or a Sean Brady or a I don't even know who else there could possibly be, or a Donald Cerrone outside the rankings at welterweight. I just don't see any of those fights happening. Cerrone said that he wants to go down to lightweight for one last run. I understand why he wants to do that. I don't see a Nick Diaz versus a Condit versus Matt Brown winner either. I know a lot of people have assumed that, but they're fighting in January, I believe, and I feel like that's going to be a little bit off on the time because they're older guys. They're going to need a little bit of time off after that fight anyway, and I don't think we'll be seeing either of Matt Brown or Carlos Condit, if they are going to return again until the middle of next year, because they're older. They need to take time off. They need to recover their bodies. However, Tyron Woodley's back in training. He'll be training throughout December. I say they make Tyron Woodley versus Nick Diaz in April or March. Make the fight happen. That's what we need to see, because Tyron Woodley, first of all, it's a winnable matchup for Nick Diaz. And I know that sounds crazy, but every single person that beats Tyron Woodley beats him with volume, cardio, pace, and a good chin. And Nick Diaz has all of those things. Fair enough, that was 6 years ago. But if there's a style that is going to beat Tyron Woodley, it would be the Nick Diaz style. He has the formula to get it done. Now, is he the age to get it done? Maybe not. But then again, Tyron Woodley is getting up there in his 30s as well. So this isn't even too much of an age thing. And also, if you want to talk about Nick Diaz maybe not coming back in his prime, Woodley is far from his prime. I don't know if you've seen his body recently, but Tyron Woodley's body has been drastically deteriorating. I want to say for the past 4 years, it feels like now, because he's never the same as he looked like in Strikeforce. In Strikeforce, Woodley was a different kind of beast. Okay, then he came over to the UFC, lost it a little bit, but maybe he was just working on his cardio. Then he got the belt, defended it a couple times, looked good, and then he started fading a little bit, and those muscles started to get a little bit softer. So if I was going to pick a perfect matchup for Nick Diaz to return to, it would be Tyron Woodley. He's ranked number 6. If Diaz beats him, you could justify maybe even if Masvidal beats Colby Covington. and Nick Diaz beats Tyron Woodley. I'm not saying both of these things are going to happen because I don't believe either of them would happen. But still, if that does happen, you could justify a Masvidal versus Nick Diaz match for the BMF belt, for a title elimination bout. This is very likely to happen. And I think if Nick Diaz is going to come back, I don't want to risk him losing to some guy that gets him nothing if he potentially wins. You know what I'm saying? I don't want it to risk losing him to a guy who's not even going to be ranked with a win over Nick Diaz. I want Nick Diaz to lose to a guy in the rankings who can rejuvenate their career with a win. Because if Tyron Woodley beats Nick Diaz, that opens all kind of narratives. He's a big name again. All of these storylines between him and Nate Diaz, they had beef before. Also, Tyron Woodley and Nick Diaz were talking about fighting ages ago, back in the days where Woodley took like a year off of fighting for the championship, wanted to fight Michael Bisping, called out the Diaz brothers, wanted those big money fights. But if you call for big money fights, they're probably not going to come your way. You become your own money fight, and then the money fights find you. But still, Tyron Woodley versus Nick Diaz would be the ideal situation because that would put the winner of that right back in there around the top 5 area. Looking forward to it if it does happen. If it doesn't happen, these are some other names that I want to run by you guys that are good potential matchups as well. Demian Maia has one more fight left on his contract. What better fight to finish it off with than with Nick Diaz, a legend of the game? I am so sure that Demian Maia would love that matchup. And also, again, winnable matchup for Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz has got really good jiu-jitsu, you know, really good jiu-jitsu, and it'll be a dangerous fight. Don't get me wrong, I think Maia would beat him, but still, better on the feet than Maia, I'm sure we can all agree. I think he'd have a real good chance against Demian Maia, so as long as you pick these matchups carefully, there's a lot of good names for Nick Diaz to return against. Demian Maia would be a great one and a great retirement bout for Demian Maia. Also, when you look down the rankings, not Kiesa. I'm not thinking anyone top 5, by the way. Not Covington, not Burns, not Edwards, not Masvidal, not Thompson. None of them. And obviously not Usman as well. I'm looking down the rankings at welterweight. Before you ask me you don't know what division he's returning at, he did a test cut earlier this year to the welterweight limit at 171. So I think he's probably going to be planning on coming back at 170 because, you know, he did a test cut to that weight class. You don't test yourself cutting down to 170 again if you're not going to fight there when you come back. But still, I don't see him fighting Kiesa. That's not going to happen whatsoever. Kiesa is not a big enough name. It also needs to be a big enough name, which Kiesa is in this case, to main event a fight night or be on a co-main event of a pay-per-view or a feature fight of a pay-per-view. Neil Magny is not that name. I like Neil Magny, but he does not bring that juice to the table that's really going to set a big fight with Nick Diaz and justify them paying Nick Diaz $500,000 to show, which is the general rate for people that have been main eventing these fight nights that are big names. Ask Colby Covington, ask Tyron Woodley. They seem to be getting a little bit more money nowadays with these guys, especially on fight nights, especially guys without belts. People without belts seem to make way more money this year than they did every year before. But still, Kiesa won't happen. Magny won't happen. Also, not very winnable fights for Diaz. Kiesa won, actually. I don't know. Listen, actually, no. Maybe Nick Diaz versus Michael Kiesa. Maybe Nick Diaz versus Michael Kiesa. Yeah, let's do that one, maybe. That's actually alright. I don't think he would win, but that's a good chance. I don't think he beats Neil Magny, though. That's one thing I don't think. He doesn't beat Neil Magny. He doesn't beat Vicente Luque, and I think they would really hurt him as well. He doesn't beat Jeff Neal, but Jeff Neal's booked against Wonderboy. But however, at number 12 in the welterweight rankings, for whatever reason, he's number 12. Whatever reason he's number 12 for, has signed a fight in a couple of weeks against Alex Moreno on the biggest fight night card of the year. Oh, I don't even think we can say that anymore. But it is still one of the biggest fight night cards of the year. It's still an amazing card, still. So Anthony Pettis has signed a fight with Alex Moreno on December the 19th in 2 weeks' time. At the end of this week, it will be 2 weeks from now. There's a reason he's signed that so quickly. There's nothing to gain with an Alex Moreno bout. He's taken on nothing but killers in his last fights. For as far back as I remember, like, everyone Pettis takes on is a monster. You've got to give him credit for that. Fajea, Ferguson, Rafael Dos Anjos, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Nate Diaz. We're going off course a little bit. Nate Diaz is not really amongst those other names, but still, Anthony Pettis has taken on stiff competition and nothing but it. He wants a fight with Alex Moreno. Do you think he wants to add Moreno to his legacy? Or do you think he wants a bounce-back win and a platform to do what's next and say what's next? I think if Pettis wins against Alex Moreno and he calls out Nick Diaz, There's storyline. Nate Diaz beat Pettis. Now Pettis wants to take on Nick Diaz to see if he can get some vengeance there. Maybe that could lead to a Pettis versus Nate Diaz rematch down the line. So Nick Diaz versus Anthony Pettis could be viable. And I believe that Pettis is most likely going to call him out if he does get the win against Alex Morono on December 19th. But we'll see if that happens. Pettis has been looking a little bit weird recently, especially in the Diego Ferreira fight. Every other fight, Pettis has looked like, you broke your foot in the Nate Diaz one. You broke your hand in the Holloway one. And you broke your hand in the Ferguson one. Again, you broke your fucking hand, Pettis. But it's all good. Ruin my parlays, Pettis. All good. But still, the Diego Ferreira fight was a worrying one. Because he genuinely looked like he just kind of, it's too difficult. Submit me. It was just a bit weird to watch Pettis do that. So if Nick Diaz wants to come back, a winnable matchup is Anthony Pettis. That would justify it, especially if Pettis beats Alex Morono. That would be on the feature fight of a pay-per-view. That would be the main event of a fight night, and I would tune in for it. Well, I'd tune in for everything, but I'm sure other people would tune in for it as well. The big comeback of Nate Diaz's bigger brother, which I'm assuming is what the majority of MMA fans nowadays are going to know him by, which is a shame. But he is Nick Diaz. He's his own person. He's a big name himself. Pettis versus Nick Diaz would be good. And also, Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz would be a great idea as well. However, I don't feel like the Pettis and Robbie Lawler names are really going to put him in the position in the rankings that he wants to be to get his hands on the big fights that he wants to get. Because there's no way he's coming back just to fight top contenders and prove that he can still get ranked. If Nick Diaz is going to come back, I say do it against Woodley or do it against Maia. Preferably Tyron Woodley because there's history there and Woodley's more likely to build some kind of hype around it. Even though Woodley's not really the big hype guy because no one tunes in to watch Woodley fights unless there's Colby in the other corner. But Woodley doesn't really sell a fight himself. But there's no way he sells less than Maia does against Nick Diaz. You know what I mean? So I'd go with Woodley versus Diaz. I reckon they talk trash back and forth. And if Woodley wins, you've reignited his career. And if Nick Diaz wins, fun times ahead in the welterweight division, and I would love every single second of it, but we'll see what goes down. Apparently, according to his manager, and I want to make sure I get the correct amount of nines in here as well, there's a 99.99999% chance. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to happen. So long as they don't ask for millions, because you just aren't going to get millions. And I really hope that his manager doesn't do that, because if his manager starts for 500 grand to show, which is really good money. That's $500,000 right there. 500 grand to show, main event of a fight night. I'm sure the UFC would be willing to fork that out for a Nick Diaz comeback, especially considering the potential of reigniting Woodley's career or moving on to make bigger fights with Nick Diaz afterwards. We'll see what goes down. But if he loses to anyone that he makes a comeback against, that's when you do the Condit versus Matt Brown fight. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you do the Condit versus Matt Brown winner fight, should I say. You want to use some of these other fights lower down the rankings, like a Nico Price or like a Robbie Lawler or like an Anthony Pettis, if the comeback doesn't work out the first time and he wants to try it again. We'll see how it goes. I want Woodley, and my thing just made a fucking loud noise at the end of my video. That just 13 fucking minutes in. Nothing out of you. Nothing out of you. Soon as I'm finished, it goes off. Really? I'm posting this anyway. I don't give a fuck. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. Why is it getting louder? Is it actually gonna... I might die. This doesn't get uploaded. See you later.